Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios in Morristown, New Jersey. We're talking solar energy today. We got a great guest. He was actually a guest with us when we did the LinkedIn video series. He is the host of the Solar Maverick podcast and the CEO and founder of Reneu Energy, Benoy Thanjan. Benoy, welcome.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on the podcast, and it's great to be on again. And I've been enjoying listening to your content, so thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's nice to hear for sure, that somebody's listening out there. But let's talk about your stuff first, just so we kind of establish some credibility for you. That way, when we're actually talking about this stuff, people know that you know what you're talking about, because I know that's why you're here. So let's talk about the podcast first, because I just think that that's interesting. Talk about the Solar Maverick podcast.
Yeah, so the Solar Maverick podcast, I started now almost 2 years. We have 85 episodes coming out starting by Tuesday. We'll have 85 next week. We come out with a bi-weekly podcast every Tuesday, and I interview different experts in the industry. We also talk about different subjects where, I will talk about, for example, like the New Jersey solar market. And it's just been amazing to do that podcast. I mean, there's so many people from the industry or people who are learning about solar reach out, and they look at you as like a thought leader within the industry, which is pretty amazing. It's probably one of the most popular podcasts in solar right now. So
when we talked about that the last time I had you on to do the video series, and you said that about the podcast and how it's been going for 2 years, and you had all these episodes and it's really popped. I was like, I didn't even know that people had solar energy podcasts, but and here you are, just doing it. So I think that's great. So then tell us about Reneu.
Sure. So Reneu is a company that I started 8 years ago. I'm the CEO and founder. We're based in Jersey City, New Jersey. We develop commercial, industrial, and utility scale solar projects in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, predominantly New Jersey, New York. We also help other developers with sourcing financing for their solar projects. And we help our clients who have environmental commodities that incentivize development, which are called SRECs, which is very popular in New Jersey. And we manage them and sell it and do research and pricing on their behalf. And that's kind of what Reneu Energy has been the past 8 years. And then before that, I worked at Tesla Solar City in their project finance group.
Okay.
I worked at another solar company called Vanguard Energy Partners and Ridgewood Renewable Power, which is a private equity fund that invested in renewable energy projects. It's pretty crazy for me to think I have 13 years of experience.
Yeah.
Renewable energy, which is a relatively new industry.
Right. What made you jump into the renewable energy space? What interested you about it?
Yeah, so I worked at Deloitte & Touche in their energy group. I basically valued power plants for many different purposes. And then I wanted to get more on the buy side, the investment side. So I went to Ridgewood Renewable Power, which is a private equity fund that invested in projects. And then about 10 years ago, I thought solar was going to be extremely big and the costs are going to go down dramatically, and it'll be one of the most popular forms of electricity or energy going forward.
Right.
And I moved to Vanguard Energy Partners and then Tesla Solar City, then started my own company. So
awesome.
And then I'm passionate about sustainability as well. So it was you're doing good for the environment, and obviously you're pushing renewable energy, which, obviously is great for the environment, as I said.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you mention the kind of clients that you work with?
Oh, sure. I didn't actually mention.
Yeah, let's do that.
My avatar, my marketing person always says. So it's commercial, industrial building owners, and then landowners who are potentially interested in solar. We also help, as I said, other solar companies as well source financing. So those are the three types of primary clients that we have.
Okay, cool. All right. So for everybody listening, Benoy knows his stuff because I've talked to Benoy a bunch over the last few months. Never actually met him in person, but we network a lot together. So he knows what he's talking about. So now we can continue with the rest of this discussion. So because the majority of my listeners are in the real estate space, why should real estate owners be looking at solar energy as an option?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that most of your clients are in New Jersey, so I could make it
Yeah.
more New Jersey.
Yeah, we'll do New Jersey. That's where the majority of my listeners are for sure.
So, I mean, really, the big thing is that you could save money on your electricity bills as a commercial industrial building owner. And basically, your electricity bill is one of the biggest expenses that commercial industrial building owners have. And obviously, you're becoming green and sustainable, and that's why, also, too, New Jersey has great state level incentives. And I could go briefly, if you want, through like the economics and how that
We'll
works.
we'll get there.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's the primary reason to go
Okay.
somewhere. And it's just as well, if you have tenants, like it's a great way of marketing your building as well to differentiate from other
Right.
building owners too.
And I guess it differentiates state to state.
Yeah, differentiate state to state. So what ends up happening is each state has different incentives for solar. Not every state has a state level incentive. And why New Jersey is a great state for solar is because the northeast of the U.S. has high electricity costs, and then New Jersey has a strong state level incentive. People automatically assume the more sunny states will potentially you should have more solar,
Yeah.
but that's not necessarily the case. For example, like Florida is the sunshine state, obviously, but it doesn't have high electricity costs as you see like in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Versus like California and Hawaii, you get so much sunlight, and you also have high electricity costs as well.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I just got my electric bill for my apartment. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, and I don't even want to talk about it. Well,
that's the other thing with COVID. Electricity bills have gotten a lot higher for residential.
Because you're just home all the time and, plugging stuff in and watching TV and doing the Zoom stuff. And I don't know. It's just, It's crazy. But, all right. So you were talking about some of the stuff, the clients that you work with is how to source financing for some of these projects. So can you talk to some of talk about commercial financing for solar projects?
Sure. So like the financing piece is like a pretty important aspect of it because solar has federal incentives, which is there's an investment tax credit that basically 28% of the value of the solar system is paid for by this, they call ITC. There's also accelerated depreciation. So there's 5-year depreciation for a long-lived asset that lasts 25 to 30 years. And that's all really to increase like the return or payback of the project. Just to give you an idea, like the federal incentives make up maybe 35 to 40% of the total value of the system. But the reason why I'm going into this long sort of thing is that you need to have like a taxable appetite or income to take advantage of that, because that's a tax credit. Okay. So the building owner might not necessarily have that. And so we help actually bring either that tax equity component or through some sort of like operating lease structure where they would pay a lease payment, and then the lender would basically take the tax attributes, and then there would be a flip in ownership the 6th or 7th year, because that's when all the tax attributes based on the depreciation and the investment tax credit are taken. There's also third-party ownership with a power purchase agreement, or PPA, that's what they call it, and basically a third-party investor owns the system on your building and then provides discounted electricity. So you don't have like anything out of pocket, but you're lowering your expenses. And, we find actually during COVID, a lot of building owners are interested in looking at the power purchase agreement because, energy is a huge cost, and, they want to obviously cut costs and save money. So it's been like really busy, just like quoting that. We also do like technical feasibility as well for the projects and develop the projects. We don't do the actual construction. We have construction partners.
Gotcha.
The actual construction.
Okay. So talk a little bit more about those federal incentives, because, it just seems like, talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So right now it's really important to take advantage of the federal incentives because they're stepping down. So last year it was at 30%. This year it's at 26%. And then next year it's at 22%. And then it goes the year after that to 10%. So that incentive makes a huge difference in the economics of the project. So people are actually rushing to get projects built to take advantage of this 26% investment tax credit. And then there's safe harboring. So basically, if you have like 5% of the cost of the construction allocated this year, you could qualify for the 26% next year, even though it's 22%. And there has been talks within the federal government to potentially bring it back to 30%, and then actually not it to be a tax incentive, to have it as a cash grant, which it was at a certain time. Because right now, like a lot of companies and high net worth individuals are not making as much money, so they have less taxable income. So then that actually hurts like the investment for solar as well.
Right. Do these projects have to meet certain criteria for federal incentives?
So I mean, pretty much any types of projects, solar projects
Like
qualify.
any size,
Any size, residential as well
Okay.
qualifies, because we're getting a lot of people interested. We don't do residential, but people are interested. So it's any size, and then it's like the solar technology, and it applies to any solar project of any size in any
Gotcha.
U.S.
Okay. All right. So then let's talk more. Let's dive into New Jersey a little bit more.
Sure.
So talk about because we discussed some reasons why New Jersey is a great state for solar. Let's talk a little bit more about like the incentives and dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. So New Jersey, people are surprised to find out, is like a top 10 state for solar for a very long time. And that's because they had a state level incentive called an SREC, which I won't go that. It's basically a solar renewable energy credit that now is actually sunsetted, but it led to a lot of development of solar. And now they have a new incentive. It's called the TREC, which is a transitional renewable energy credit. And basically that's $152 per SREC or per megawatt hour, which is based on production. And then they have basically incentivized different types of development. So they discount it if it's like a community solar project, which I'll go into more detail, which is like 80% of the value, in residential is 65%. But it's a really strong incentive. Just to give you an idea, like an SREC is the TREC at $152 basically represents 15 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
And to give you an idea, like a commercial industrial building owner is paying 8 to 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So like already the incentive itself is covering like their electricity cost.
Yeah.
So it's like really like basically I said before, like a solar project life is between 20 to 30 years. The payback with the TREC, if the building owner owned it, is like three years. But then you're effectively getting like free electricity.
Yeah. Which is going to make a huge difference on the bottom line, I would think, right? So like, why wouldn't somebody do it?
Yeah, it would make a huge difference. Yeah, and I'm surprised actually. Like, we spend a lot of time talking to commercial industrial building owners, like how many companies have not gone solar. Just to give you an example too, like Michael, I think your users or your listeners, not users, would find valuable is the power purchase agreement rates for like rooftop solar for this TREC program, which expires October of next year. And then they're going to a new incentive in New Jersey. We don't know what it's going to be, but we know it's going to be lower. But the rate's between 1 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour versus paying between 8 to 11 cents. So that's a huge, and you're not paying any money out of pocket. That's just,
yeah.
So you would think a lot more companies would go, to do like a PPA and it's pretty like lucrative just from a savings perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, I put it on my building here. That would be great. That way I don't have to pay electricity anymore. But so, all right. So let's talk about some of the projects that, because like my parents live up in Sparta. There's like a big farm. Then they converted like the fields into like this, basically like a solar farm. And like, it's just solar panels all up the hill. Right. And I know that you could probably do stuff on the roof. Sometimes you see people's houses with the solar panels on the roof. So do you need a lot of space? Do you need a roof? What are some ways that you can actually start installing some of this stuff?
Sure. So I would say the first thing to look at is whether your roof is like southward facing, because then you'll get, obviously, the more sunlight you have, the more irradiance or sunlight and more production that you would have for your solar system, and it makes sense. The other thing too is like your roof age. So, if you have a roof that's 5 years or older, you would need to potentially do some restoration or replacement, because you'll have the solar on there for 20 to 30 years. And if there's an issue, it could be a lot more costly to basically take the panels out, fix the roof. And then it's really like your energy usage and how much you're using to basically offset it. And why I didn't actually talk about like what you talked about, Michael, like the solar farms or fields, is actually New Jersey now doesn't allow solar on farmland. Since 2012. They're actually, they want to basically maintain farmland. So they're actually only promoting solar on landfill and brownfields, which is a great way of actually developing solar on land that can't be used. There is some legislation that actually the Senate has, to the New Jersey Senate, to potentially have solar on farmland again, because farmers are saying that they potentially could have like dual use. And make some income more from the lease on the land to use the solar than they would with having like crops there.
Right.
So,
what are some like, go ahead, sorry.
No, especially now with like just farmers having difficulty. And
right. I mean, if I was a farmer, I would definitely look into doing it if I had a lot of space, and especially now, like if it's not getting utilized as best as it possibly can be, let me do with it what I want, What are some outside the box projects that you've seen though?
So like one of the really exciting things that's happening in New Jersey, and we're developing a lot of these types of projects in New York, is community solar. So basically you could have like solar on a commercial industrial rooftop or a landfill, brownfield, but instead of like the energy user using the electricity in the building, it could actually be sold to anyone in the utility service territory. So let's say you're in PSE&G, any residential customer could basically purchase solar from that solar farm or community solar project, businesses as well. So it allows people who cannot get access to solar, let's say like apartment dwellers, or even like based on credit score, like it's focused on like low moderate income, because if to get residential solar, you need basically a credit score of 650 or above. So that eliminates a lot of people who couldn't get it, or renter, or let's say you have issues with your house, there's shading where it doesn't make sense. It gives an opportunity, and it actually gives the building owner opportunity to lease out their roof for solar. So like they could get some revenue that they haven't before, and you're not dependent on like, say like the tenant, you know what I mean, that you have. This is more like a way of generating revenue from somewhere that you wouldn't have. And basically what we're seeing for like rates is 25 cents to like $1 per square foot on the roof in New Jersey for a community solar project. But there's so many variables involved, like the cost of the system, the amount of sun, if there's roof work. So if anyone's interested, like they're welcome to reach out. We could give them like an estimate of what it would be. So, a lot of people in New Jersey are pretty excited about community.
No, that's pretty cool. So what was the project before we got on? You were talking about the parking lot stuff. Talk about that a little bit more.
So the other thing too is obviously there's only a limited amount of roof space, but there's a lot of parking lots out there as well. So a parking lot is actually a great way of putting solar and getting some sort of income or saving on a solar system. And if people are not familiar, like a solar carport is basically a ground mounted solar panel that's installed above driveways and parking lots to form a carport. And they basically provide shade and protection to vehicles below, and you could efficiently produce electricity. So you could use that electricity for your building, or you could actually like use it for a community solar project. So it's a more costly installation, but so the numbers that I kind of quoted wouldn't apply, because that's more to rooftop, because of rooftop installation. But it's definitely an opportunity with commercial industrial building owners that have huge rooftops. You could also as well potentially put battery charging stations as well, because obviously now more and more people are having electric vehicles. And as the future comes, you're going to see more of electrification of the car fleet as well.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So what, like, you've been in this renewable energy space for, what do we say, 13 years so far?
13 years, yes.
Okay. So 13 years ago to now, what has been the trend? I would assume that it's, moving more towards solar, especially because you're just laying out all these benefits of it. Are you seeing like, is it a slow push towards renewable energy sources? Are people still fighting it for whatever reason? Has there been like periods where it's like jumped up considerably?
Yeah, so it's like growing exponentially. I mean, like the industry has changed so much within 13 years. I mean, the amount of solar that's in the ground now to back in 2007 or 8, it's just amazing. And part of that has to do with the declining cost of solar panels, all the equipment, the production, of the panels, then people getting comfortable with the technology. Obviously, you mentioned like government incentives, like 2000, after the 2008 recession, the government passed like a 30% cash grant, and that actually led to a lot of solar deployment. But we're still seeing like a lot of solar being built and more because what's ending up happening is like companies are having like 100% renewable energy goals, like big companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook. It's part of like their mission as a company. And then they're basically dictating to like energy companies, energy utility companies, state level governments that you should have incentives for that, or you should try to make it happen. So
Yeah.
it's been amazing to kind of see, because from the federal level, there hasn't been many new incentives. And the big thing is though, none of these businesses would do it unless they save money. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're not going to do it for just the purely green. No CFO that I've talked to.
Right. Yeah.
So as long as they're saving money, they're going to do it. And I think the exciting thing too is we're not that far away in certain states where you don't need incentives. And that will, because like being dependent on incentives make things extremely difficult.
That was gonna be my next question is like, I know you talked about some of these, like the federal and state level here in New Jersey, like stepping down over the next year or 2 years, whatever it is. Like, is that like a concern? Like, let's just say they just kind of like let it go and
Sure.
not bump it up. Like, is that a concern for someone like you in your space where you're like, uh-oh, like maybe this is going to be a problem and we're not going to see as much people moving into solar without those incentives?
Yeah, so that's definitely like always a concern. But what we've seen is like the industry is pretty innovative with like lowering all the different costs related to the supply chain, balance the system, all the equipment. Also, we're getting better at building these things and building them quicker and like very efficiently. So yes, I'm definitely concerned about that. But at the same time too, like the prices continue to go down.
Yeah.
The equipment, the technology keeps like improving exponentially, and every time there's been some sort of issue, somehow like the industry has figured out ways to get around that financing and everything. So
right. So do you ever see, and this might be a ridiculous question, but bear with me because I don't know anything about this stuff. This is all I'm learning about solar and renewable energy is right now in the last 20 minutes, however long I've been talking. So do you ever see like situations where, let's just say like I'm a building owner and I put something on my roof, right? But I want more for some reason. I don't know why I would need more solar space. So I, lease out and put solar energy stuff, someplace else so that I could store it as like batteries or whatever. I don't know. Is that an off base question? I don't.
No, it's not off base. I mean, like a lot of building owners come to us and basically are like, hey, I want, instead of like a generator, is there any way we could use like batteries and install batteries in our warehouse or facility to basically cover if there's like a blackout or something like that? If that's the question that you had.
Yeah, let's do that because I think that's where I was going with it.
Yeah, so they're definitely like interested in it, but the challenge right now, at least, is battery storage is not economical enough to right now work in that sort of application. But we're seeing like the prices decrease similar to solar, where I think 3 to 5 years it will be economical. The other thing too, like New Jersey is actually about to pass some state level incentives for energy storage, because they see it as pivotal for the grid to have like some sort of battery backup.
Yeah.
As far as reliability, a lot of the infrastructure as well is very old. So to save money on building out that infrastructure, if there's energy storage projects on site, or even like utility scale energy storage, that it would help, with electricity concerns.
Why aren't batteries economically viable right now? Is it like, does it cost too much to make it? Does it cost too much to store it?
Yeah, so it costs right now too much to make it, but it's like the past 3 or 4 years, it's gone down substantially. Like the most popular technology is lithium ion, and then basically like Tesla, which everyone's familiar with, is like building like gigafactories where they're basically putting all the processes related to the production of the batteries in one place, and then they're getting more efficient with it, so they're able to lower the cost to do that. And I think Elon, who's the CEO and founder of Tesla, was saying in 2 or 3 years they think they could make a car that's 25,000, which I think is actually pretty reasonable considering like what we're seeing in the cost of these things.
Yeah. I just got a new car and it did not cost 25,000. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So this is another, just, I don't know why I just thought of this. Like, we're talking about batteries. Does solar energy, and I don't know why this would be any different than like a regular battery, but does it have like a shelf life?
Yeah, so the batteries tend to have to replace them every 10 years.
Okay.
Obviously, it's longer life than like a regular battery, but it's almost similar to like a battery that, a lithium ion battery that you buy in the store for like that you're using. So,
right. Like, I'm curious to let's, you mentioned how some building owners, and let's just say it's like a warehouse, and they want to make sure that they have like a backup generator, and they're looking at the solar idea, but they never, I guess, like turn it on. They don't need to turn it on over that, a certain amount of time. Do you need to keep refilling it? I'm thinking of like putting gas in the tank of the generator and then comparing that to a solar energy battery. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. That's perfect. That makes sense. So I mean, I'm not an expert, but for like emergency use, like lithium ion batteries, I don't think you have that. I mean, it's basically, I think like the software automatically turns on to basically make sure that it's running properly, but you don't have to obviously have like gas there with the generator to do.
I gotcha.
So
yeah. All right. I was just curious.
I'm wondering the shelf life, whether it'd be longer or less.
Yeah, I was, because I don't know why I thought that maybe like it wouldn't stay as long as I don't know. It was just like like I said, I don't know much about this stuff, so I was seeing if you could answer any of my crazy questions.
I'm sure like a lot of your listeners are having the same questions as well.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, I speak for the people. That's what we do here. So,
which I enjoy.
Yeah. So I am curious, or I think it would be good for people to know, like, how to, like, I'm a building owner. Let's just say I'm a building owner. I wish. I want to put together a solar project. Like, take me step by step through when you get involved in the process, when you should get involved in the process.
Sure.
Do people make mistakes in this process when they're trying to put the stuff together? Let's just make sure that people know like when to contact you if they're interested in this stuff, and how to go through the steps to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great way of kind of explaining it. So we get involved right in the beginning of the process, and really first it's seeing whether how old the roof is, whether there's any like shading. So meaning if there's any other buildings or trees that potentially could block the solar panels from producing energy. The other thing too is whether there's any like obstructions on the roof. So like HVAC, if there's a lot, it's just hard to put solar, and there's issues too related to shading. So basically what we initially do is like a technical and financial feasibility. We first look at the technical aspect of it, as like those are probably like the high level things that we look at. Then we draw like a preliminary design I would say like the rooftops we normally look at are like 50,000 square feet or more. I know those are like the larger size roof, but we'll look at smaller things. It's more challenging to get them financed.
Yeah.
And then we do like a financial and technical feasibility, so an electricity analysis. So really like we are hoping to look at is 2 years of like energy bills, and then trying to figure out like how much you would potentially save if you went solar. So we basically create like a high level financial pro forma that basically tells like the different options. Like let's say you own the system. Let's say it's like self-financed or it's a power purchase agreement.
Yeah.
And then we walk you through like the different like positives and negatives. And then you decide which option. And then we basically go through the process of, applying for interconnection with the utility, working with our EPC partner to basically determine like better estimates of how much it's going to cost to build, like permitting from the town as well. We also look at the interconnection point. So like what's like the closest place that you could tie in to the grid, to the solar system, and whether in the building itself, there's the infrastructure as well to basically allow a solar system to tie into the building, or whether there needs to be some sort of upgrade. So that's like, and then obviously, you go through all those pieces and then like the incentives, construction. And,
right. So essentially, if you are listening and you are a building owner and you want to put together a solar project on your building, call Benoy like right away.
Yeah, like right now.
Right now. Like what are you waiting? Like don't even listen to the rest of the episode. Just call him right now and get the process started. So we're kind of getting close to wrapping this up. So before we get to our closing segment, is there anything that I missed that you think would be good for us to chat a little bit more about?
I mean, I think that is pretty much everything that we talked about. I mean, like if people want to learn more about the solar industry, we have a lot of the building owners listen to the podcast, which we found is like a great way of people learning and getting excited about the industry. And, it's kind of similar to like your podcast as well. Like I really enjoy like the real estate content that you put out. And then as well, like the other people that you have that might not directly apply to real estate, but either they have like some experience or skills that is helpful to know. So,
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, like because we're always trying to put out good stuff for people. So maybe it doesn't have to be like exactly like, we did a 1031 exchange episode, which was great, a great episode, and it was well received by people listening. But also like we were talking about before I got on, like we had Hannah Huseman on, who's the mental skills coach for the Phillies. And while she doesn't necessarily do anything in real estate, you could listen to that episode and get things that can help you from just like a business standpoint or a networking standpoint or whatever it is, just to kind of help, round you out totally as like an individual. You know what I mean?
And that's what I enjoy because like from other real estate podcasts, like you talk about like the technical stuff, like the 1031 exchange, but then you have different types of, audience, different types of even the panels that you have. You did the one with marketing and sales. Yeah. And that's huge. And also we don't just talk about solar as well. We have other people who come on who like I think could add value, and it's surprising how many people like appreciate those episodes. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, cause like what else are you going to do right now? First of all, and as aside from listen to the Morning Spotlight or the Solar Maverick podcast, yes. Those are really the only two you should be listening.
Buy the merch as well, the Morning Spotlight.
Yeah, well. You gotta get the merch. Does the Solar Maverick have merch?
So we have merch, but I actually haven't like posted or put it online like my marketing.
Well, I need, what do you got? T-shirts, hats? What do you got?
Yeah, we have T-shirts. Yes.
All right, I need a Solar Maverick T-shirt. So
yeah, definitely.
Let's just send me whatever link you have, and I'll go on and I'll get one.
Yeah, I'll get my Morning Spotlight. I should have wore it for today.
It's okay. It's all right. Next time you come on, I'll make sure that you have one. And that way, we're all dressed up with a T-shirt with my face on it. And we'll all drink out of the mugs with my face on it.
Mugs, yes.
Yeah. I did, like, I don't know why we're getting off topic here, but the hair has always been slightly false advertising. I shaved my head, and now it is just like a blatant lie. Like, because that picture has way too much hair than I've ever had in my, like, since I was 20. So, but whatever. It looks good, I think.
It looks good.
Yeah.
I love the sound effects, like your intro and everything. And
yeah. My cousin did that. My cousin
Oh.
wrote that, and he's a musician. Fantastic.
Oh, it is amazing.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're going to get, now that we've gone completely off the rails here, we're going to get into our closing segment, which is called Under the Spotlight. So every show we do this, doesn't matter if it's real estate focused or not. You can give me a prediction. You can give me your final thought. Basically, people have listened to us talk about renewable energy, solar energy, different ways that you could help them save money for the last 35 minutes so far. But what is one thing that you want them to walk away from the Morning Spotlight episode with Benoy Thanjan of Reneu Energy? What is that one thing?
So I think the one thing is like transparency. I mean, I know you've probably heard this before, but really, like, there's so many different ways that you could look at the solar project. And really what we're there is to facilitate the process, to be transparent with you. What are the different options, and then help you make that decision. Because what we see is actually a lot of solar companies pushing the options that are best for them and not best for the customer, or maybe the more lucrative. Really, we're about building like long-term relationships, being extremely transparent. Most of our business comes from referrals from companies that we worked with in the past. So I think that's like a really sort of, feedback.
Awesome.
We've gotten. So
yeah, great. All right. So that is going to wrap up our show. For everyone listening, I'm going to put all of Benoy's links. I'm going to put his LinkedIn link. I'm going to put his Solar Maverick link to iTunes or the Apple Podcast platform. I will put the link to his website, his email address, all his stuff, so that, if you do want to reach out to him, even though you should have called him already, because we said that it was an action item, nobody did it.
Well, I got 2 phone calls actually. I don't think it's from your listeners.
Yeah, their ears are probably ringing, like, oh, I got to call Benoy. But I will make sure I put all that stuff in the show notes. So make sure you reach out to him if you have any questions, if you want to just ask him something, if you're interested in putting a project together. Make sure you do that. If you want to be a guest on the Morning Spotlight or hear us talk about a specific topic on the Morning Spotlight, make sure to go to our website at themorningspotlight.com, fill out the form, or email us at themorningspotlight@gmail.com, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Benoy, thank you for coming on with us again today.
Yep, thank you for the opportunity, Michael. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And everybody else, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.